What's going on, YouTube? I'm Scotch.
I'm Sniff.
And we're Scotch and Sniff.
Fantastic. Today, we're going to be walking you guys through the basic process of CNPF.
A color,
Nose,
palate,
close enough, and finish, which is fantastic because those are the four basic pieces that you need to actually taste any kind of Scotch you're going to come across. Today, we're going to be trying the Macallan 21 Fine Oak. It's a little expensive, but we figured if we're gonna sit here and show you guys how to taste Scotch, we might as well be enjoying ourselves as we do it, right?
Bring your wallets, because this thing is the A game right here.
Also,
this is no joke.
He's absolutely correct. This bottle's a little expensive, so this isn't for beginners per se, this actual bottle, or maybe it's for a special time or whatever. But definitely, we're just doing this again to show you guys the process of how to taste any Scotch. It can be a $30 Scotch, or it can be a $3,000 Scotch.
Exactly. You're always gonna do it the exact same way by looking at the color, by nosing it, tasting the palate, and then of course, what's that finish?
The finish. All right, let's get to it.
Makes sense.
Fantastic.
So these glasses here are called Glencairn glasses. They're of course a company that makes them, but they're the official whiskey tasting glass. Do you have to taste it in this? No, of course not. You can always just get like a little tumbler or put it in a red cup if that's how you drink it. But this right here, the belly accentuates the flavor. The little tulip part right here, make sure that the alcohol, the harsh flavors and the tones stay towards the belly, and you just get the beautiful scent that is the whiskey.
Definitely.
And they look pretty, and everybody likes pretty things.
So let's start with color. So this, to be honest, is the most worthless part of tasting whiskey, and here's why. The color in this is gold,
Brown.
right? It's a goldish, brownish color. There's
Brown.
absolutely nothing magical about it. Every
like
whiskey
brown.
is some shade of somewhere between white and really dark brownish red.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the beast because it's getting its color from the oak itself.
Exactly. What color is wood? Usually it's gonna be brown, especially when it's wet. So a lot of the times they'll say, oh, this is golden hay, and you'll hear all these fancy terms. This is a spring
hay.
bush sitting on top of a mountain where the sun hits it 2 hours of the day and it's preserved its color.
All that people are trying to do is bring some intensity to exactly what's going on. It's a boring thing. Anything can be a boring thing. And they're trying to make it sound a little more exciting because I think it adds to the whole experience of tasting in the first place. Because tasting, really, when you think about it, you're just drinking really woody water. And it's old, and it's gross, and it's sitting in nasty, moldy barrels. But to make that a little more intricate, exciting, and fun, people just add some descriptors to it. So we can call this golden, yellowish, hueish, strawish kind of colorish.
And when it comes down to it, you drink your whiskey and you smell and taste and palate and finish your whiskey however you like.
Right.
If you say that this looks like urine after I didn't drink enough water for the day, it's your description.
Still accurate, but do you really want to think about urine while you're
especially
drinking
it? So we'll go with the golden
straw? Fantastic.
Beautiful.
The second part of the CNPF process, of course, is the nose. And this is probably the most important part because 90% of what you taste is actually what you smell. So there are different kinds of smelling. A lot of people do love the tulip-shaped glasses because it kind of concentrates the nose above them. And what that means is you don't have to shove your nose in the entire glass as you just saw Scotch doing. That's
like this?
Not completely necessary. And
burns
really,
the nostrils.
There's a spot kind of above the glass where a lot of the smells and the flavors of the actual whiskey will gather, and you can just kind of just.
You want to nose it gently. You want to breathe in very gently. Sometimes there are different techniques that you'll develop on your own, but just putting your nose in there and breathing, you're just going to get harsh alcohol. You're going to probably blow out your nose and you're not going to be able to smell anything for a couple of days. That's not our fault. We're trying to teach you the right way to do it. Anyways, but if you just breathe gently, take small whiffs. We like to swirl the glass. A lot of people don't like to swirl for whatever reason.
You swirl really to give the alcohol more surface area to evaporate off of. So that it is, scientifically correct way to get more of the alcohol out of the way so you can smell more of the flavors that are actually inside the distillate itself.
But by doing this, smelling either with your mouth open or with it closed, with your right nostril, your left nostril, you'll pick up different nuances and different smells. And it's difficult at first, but writing things down really helps you develop the ability to nose better and more. One
of the weird things that I like to do, and we kind of discovered this early on, is if you act like you're gonna take a sip, and that breath that you take while you have your mouth open, like you're going to take a sip, before you ever take one, it actually almost enhances all of the flavors that are inside of it because you're tasting with your nose, your sinuses, your tongue, just like everything all at one time. That really brings it.
Definitely.
That's good.
What kind of things do you get from this?
I'm smelling quite a bit of orange, actually, and a touch of peat, which is not exactly my favorite kind of thing.
So what peat is, if you haven't seen the other videos that we have, peat is a moss that grows in bogs in Scotland, in multiple places, but Scotland is where this one comes from. And basically there's a guy who chops the peat down and he goes out in the bog and he just collects this mud vegetal mixture that's grown over centuries, hundreds of centuries type thing. And then when they're drying the grains for the whiskey, they're also like basically smoking the peat in a fire.
So they're drying the grains by burning a fire underneath the floors in Scotland.
Correct. And then the smoke from the peat is coming up through those floors and basically grabbing on. Smoke grabs onto basically anything. You go into a smoky bar, you come out, and the next day you smell like smoke. So that's exactly how the peat kind of
like smoked barbecue. You pick the type of wood you want to smoke it with, and the meat tastes like
cherry,
maple,
pecan,
pecan meat.
So that's what peat is.
So let's try the next thing in the CNPF would of course be the palate, which all palate is a fancy word for your tongue. You're just going to try tasting it, and what you're going to do is you really want to coat your entire mouth with whatever whiskey it is that you're trying. And what this does is it really gives all parts of your mouth. Hold on. So there's a huge old wives' tale and misconception that certain parts of your tongue taste certain things, and that's already been proven to be not true. So your taste buds that you have for certain taste flavors are all over your tongue, be it salty, sweet, bitter, or I don't even remember what the fourth one is.
Salty, sweet, bitter. I don't know, we'll just say umami.
Umami is like the fifth magical one that nobody talks about.
That Kikkoman made up. Can I say that?
There you go. So your tongue, you're just gonna wanna just wrap your entire tongue in whatever whiskey it is, and this will give you a really good idea of the flavors that are sitting inside of it. And again, because the nosing portion is so important and the smell is so important to what you're tasting, 90% of it, you really wanna make sure that you keep nosing it even after you have it in your mouth.
And by not just gulping it down or swallowing it quickly, it also doesn't burn your mouth out. Your saliva mixes with the whiskey and it kind of dilutes it automatically. So when people have ice in their whiskey or they add water to their whiskey, it's essentially what your mouth is doing with your saliva. So when people say, I don't add water to whiskey, everyone adds water, just sometimes it's saliva. But what water does is it accentuates, and right here, Sniff's pouring out filtered water or bottled water, which is better than sometimes your tap water, because tap water can have different fluorides in it, different minerals. If you have hard water, it might have iron, and it reacts kind of funkily with the whiskey, and it just might have some bad tastes.
So as Scotch is tasting now and going through the palate phase, I've already come to the finish phase, which of course happens after you taste. The finish are all the notes you get when you take that first breath after you've been tasting it all over your tongue. And that first breath just comes like a cool breeze over everything on your tongue, and you really get that flavor of what's going on in there. So you've tasted, you're thinking about the flavors, you smelled the flavors, you've thought about them, and now you're just, how does it all come together? Like, what is it bringing all together in one place? So on the palate, I tasted tons of oranges, which is pretty fantastic, and Macallan themselves have described this as being kind of orangey, and then peat, which isn't exactly my best friend when it comes to whiskeys. It's a personal preference. It's not a big deal. Some people love the Ardbegs and the things from the Islay, from the Islay, those things. But it's just a different set of flavor profiles that, it's different for everybody. Now, myself, I didn't come from any kind of classically trained cooking or whatnot like this guy who went to culinary school. But I'm tasting a lot of orange. I'm tasting quite a bit of vanilla, which is fantastic, and I'm tasting the peat again. So
me, I get different, right off the bat, I get a tarragon spice, which is easily related with licorice candies, black licorice. Anise is another way to do it. So all of these different names for one single thing just kind of gives you different ways to say it. They do taste a little bit differently. Tarragon has a sweet licorice flavor to it, and this of course is sweet. There's also, it's drying. The front of my mouth, my tip of my tongue, it's dry.
Tannins.
Which come from the tannins in the wood, the oak barrels. I'm also getting a slight nutty spice, which probably comes from the sherry cask. But a lot of people would describe that as maybe like pepper or
Definitely.
different kinds of spice like that. Not necessarily like Indian spices with garam masala, but there are some whiskeys that we have had that taste like that. But this one's more of a white pepper type spice. It's very light. I get the peat a little bit more softer than Sniff does, but it's definitely present.
And then, of course, the finish is what we've had there, but I'm going to go ahead and get into the palate again with water. So a lot of times people will add water to it to dilute some of the alcohol, again, to bring out flavors. There's a lot of conjecture going around the internet about whether or not this actually makes a difference, how much of a difference it makes, what it actually causes. Some people say the water actually helps the esters and the aldehydes to be captured inside of certain little molecules, or the alcohol to be broken open, or whatever it may be. We've just noticed that if you add water to it, it does in fact change the flavor enough that it's remarkable.
So when you add water to whiskey, it creates this cloudy effect. And what that cloudy effect, why it happens is because of these are non-chill filtered whiskeys, or a lot of the whiskeys that we buy are non-chill filtered. And what chill filtration is it basically at the distillery, they chill the liquid down to below 0 temperatures, and all of the fat and the solubles drop out, and anything that makes the whiskey cloudy. So you want, a very crystal clear liquid. You don't want to buy a whiskey and be like, oh, why is this thing cloudy? This is disgusting.
It's gross.
So that's what chill filtration does. But since the fat solubles also drop out during chill filtration, fat is flavor. And, no matter what nutritionists tell you, fat is where flavor is. You get a nice barbecue, you get that fat cat. Delicious.
That's where the best part is.
So when you buy a non-chill filtered whiskey, the fat is still in there. Those flavors still, those extra flavors are still there to try.
So if your whiskey gets a little cloudy when you add water, it's not a big deal. So this next part of it, of course, we're going to taste it with water, which is going to be a little bit different, but
we can basically run through the exact same color, nose, palate finish with adding water, because it will sometimes, I would say like most of the time, it will give you a different flavor profile. Sometimes it will wash out a whiskey and it just won't be delicious, or you'll get this bitter peat face that he has right here. But then sometimes it will accentuate the flavors, make things sweeter, make things nuttier, sherrier, just more delicious.
every once in a while it brings out some of the better flavors. Like you'll get that, especially with bourbons, I found. You'll get a lot of fantastic flavors that are making their way to the top, like caramel and vanilla, which we always joke about with bourbon because it's pretty much caramel, vanilla, and brown. But with scotches, it can be all over the place. Like this one, in this case, I added water. I got a little more vanilla on the nose, but the peat really seemed to make its way to the top. And for me, with the Macallan 21 Fine Oak, it kind of ruins it.
Yeah, sometimes when you spend so much money on a whiskey, you really just want to taste it neat. And that's without adding water, without adding ice. You just want a glass and a bottle.
Definitely.
For me, this brings out more of the drying flavor. It's more tannic. It's actually difficult to talk right now because my mouth is just drying out. The peat does come up more, but still, it's a softer peat than a lot of the different Islay scotches that are basically, they're like a northern portion of the scotches that use more peat in the creation of the scotch. So it's just got this smoky, barbecued meat flavors that shouldn't be in a bottle.
Barbecued meat, I'm pretty sure it's more like rubber bands, nasty old leather shoes.
Isopropyl alcohol,
tons of
Band-Aids,
iodine,
rubber.
It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, but if you love, peated whiskeys, more power to you. What we always say is that any scotch is a good scotch as long as you're drinking scotch.
Bingo. That's pretty much the way to put it. So go ahead and let us know what your favorite scotch is that you like to really taste and enjoy.
Comment down below.
There you go.
I hope I'm pointing to the comments.
Comment, like, and subscribe, and just let us know, what is it that you love the most?
Do we need an outro?
I don't know, because we just do that, and then we cut to some cheesy music, and we're done. No, we're not dancing. That's twice now that he's dancing. Maybe we just need to cut to him dancing at the end of every... I'm really nervous.